So, we're here because over the last 21 years, the cannabis industry has successfully brought out of the illegal side and into the legal side medical marijuana and marijuana for adult use in 29 states. They've done it exclusively through the voter-initiated ballot measure process. And so a lot of people are wondering, what fucks up with New York State? It's a big state, it's a liberal state. If you walk around on Manhattan, anywhere, people are smoking pot on every street corner. So what's up, New York? Well, okay, the problem is that New York has no voter-initiated ballot process in its constitution. It's simply not possible. So we're stuck with the legislature or the legislature. But New York has got in its constitution a clause that occurs in only 14 other states, or 14 states altogether, I think, which requires that the voters, every 20 years, have a vote on the very simple question, do you want to have a constitutional convention, a state convention, not a federal convention? So the question on the ballot this November 7 is, shall we have a convention to revise the Constitution and amend the same? Yes or no? So by a simple majority, 50% plus one, this November, we will decide if we want to have a constitutional convention or not. If we get a no, then the process dies for 20 years, and we go back to the legislature or the legislature or the legislature, right? If we get a yes, that triggers a 2-year process. In the first year, we would elect our delegates. And that's 2018, that's a midterm election. In the second year, we would hold a convention. We would start the convention on April 2nd of 2019. That's another off-year election, just like this year. And the convention would report out to the people one or more ballot proposals, constitutional amendment proposals, in just the same way that we would do if we had a voter-initiated ballot system. See, so it's kind of the same idea, but it's a little more complex. The parts that we know occur in little different sequences, but this is an industry that has developed virtually a machine over 20 years. All you have to do is look at 2016, where we got 8 out of 9 proposals, and we would have got 9 out of 9 if we hadn't gotten ambushed at the last minute. So we've got that machine in place. We know how to do this. This process is not as scary as some people make it sound because they just don't know the process, right? So that's what we're doing. We are advocating right now for that yes. And then as soon as we get the yes, then our job is to get the yes. And then once we get the yes on November 8th, to be in a position that we can hit the ground running to elect the delegates that will support our platforms, to give them the tools they need to get elected, to give them the support they need to get elected, to give them the tools they need to make sure that their signatures don't get thrown off their ballots, that their paperwork is all in order. And then when that's all done, and our delegates are embedded in all the parties, we got our delegates in the Democratic slate, and our delegates in the Republican slate, then the next job is to understand how a convention is organized. Now, unlike what the common thinking about conventions, we think about Democratic and Republican presidential committee conventions where everybody's got a sign and they're marching around. Well, this is not that at all. This is a legislative session. It's an extraordinary legislative session. It only occurs once. It has no history. It doesn't occur again. It's a one-time deal where the people get together and, of course, they elect the delegates, which are legislators, right? So that process in April 2nd is just like calling an extraordinary session of the legislature. It's not one of those conventions with signs. So we have to understand how do we work inside of that framework, because we are not naturally legislators. We do ballot measures, we do voting, we do messaging. We don't normally sit in chambers and do legislation. So there's a training piece there about how we work inside the structures to make sure that when there is a convention, that we are properly positioned in the right committees and in the right leadership positions so that we get our agenda done, because we could get sabotaged along the way, right? So that's basically what we're... The important vote is November 7th of 2017. That's in 4 months in New York State. It's a yes for a constitutional convention, a state constitutional convention. If we don't get a yes, we're dead for 20 years. If we do get a yes, we have the process I just told you.
So
interrupted by that guy.
vote yes then.
Vote yes November 7th, please. It's do or die.
Thank you.